All right, guys, I want to value your time. It's 5 after. Um, Not a lot, but I'm hoping uh, some of this is good news and some of it is iffy. Just realize I'm not telling you in a couple of these things are not definitive. I'm hearing possibility of this. The first thing is what I have heard is that they did that red line list. I think I mentioned that last time. They went through all the people who had been assigned planners, and word got out that those projects were um, being hacked off. These are not going to be considered further. Really, that red line list is what we're being told was really we have questions on these projects. They weren't being axed from the program. There's just like we need further details on these. So I've never gotten that list. So I guess nobody's cut out. So other than the people who didn't get planners, those projects are still ineligible or deemed ineligible, which was Ken's followed up on all those folks in our region. But that red line list is more just we have questions about the project. They're trying to figure it out because they want to make sure it's eligible before it ends up in an application. Now, this is the possible. I just got this word yesterday, and again, don't hold me to this, okay? There's a possibility they may approve more money for the planners at the September controlling board meeting for now, between now and application due date time. So the planners put in, they got cut pretty significantly. I think they've tried to make their case with DOD, and there's a possibility they might get more money, which would help with them continuing on with their design and engineering of the projects that they're working on, which then makes when we get to development stage of this process, the projects being farther along, planning and design farther along, and then hopefully people can start sooner on these projects than the way we were thinking things were going to be based on the amount that got approved on July the 10th. So don't hold me to that, but I'm hearing that that's a possibility. The other possible thing, which I'm a little relieved at this one, if it happens. So again, possible. They might fund more applications than what we've heard about. We were hearing anywhere from 4 to 10. That was the parameters we were hearing. I think they've taken a look at the diversity. Nobody told me this. This is just me thinking about it. The diversity of the projects they have. And I think they realize throwing all that into 4 applications is just like I compared it to, I think I was telling Ken yesterday, when you're low on groceries and you throw together dinner and nothing really matches up good. And we don't want to, I don't think they want to do that with projects. Just throw a bunch together because it seems to make sense, but they want it to make sense what the projects are. So that's possibility. I don't want to give you a number on what that'll be. Um, but I don't think they're going to. I'll put it this way: it's not going to be you all individually applying for your own community. It's still going to be projects grouped together from several communities. But we may be looking at more than 10 get funded. So I'll leave it at that. Okay, and I think that'll help us. That'll prevent all of us from having to push people into projects that might, you know, like how do they fit into that project? We can be a little more diverse in what's submitted. So um, that's it on the development side. The development side, I got a couple comments on the TA grant. One is where the planners are now on their funding. I'll find out more on August the 4th. We have a meeting. The LDDs are meeting with the planners on August the 4th in Columbus to try to begin that process of looking at what projects do we have, make recommendations of some themed projects, And then once we have that meeting, we will come back to you guys if we get that far in the meeting and have some ideas about, let's group these projects together. They look like they fit. We're not going to force anybody to be in any group, but we would make recommendations and say that your project seems to fit well in this. Um, the and there's 4 categories the LDDs have come up with on projects, but I don't even want to tell you what those are because that meeting, those 4 could go out the window and we got 4 new ones, or those 4 may stay and we come up with 4 more or whatever. I don't know. Whatever, we'll figure that out. So um but I'm hoping after that August 4th and that we'll have more information from our end. And that happens to be at meeting happens to conflict with this meeting here. Our next time we would get together after today would be August the 4th. So I haven't looked at my calendar yet. I should have done that and did not. But I would like to not wait 2 weeks after that August 4th meeting to tell you what I learned at the meeting that day. So we might try to do this on August the 7th, which would be the Monday after that August the 4th. Maybe do it the same time. Well, 10 a.m. Everybody loves a morning meeting on Monday. Maybe we'll do it in the afternoon that one time. Maybe we do it Monday afternoon if that works for everybody on the 7th of August. But I'm just not going to be available to do this. Or Ken's not either. We'll both be at that meeting. So we won't be here on the 4th to update you. One thing on the TA grants, I do want to say there are a couple things. One, if you guys have your stuff and ready to submit it to me, the amended scopes of work, please do so. I'm not rushing you on that. I am actually working this week. I have been on getting the subrecipient agreement finalized. And thanks again to Kennedy and Claremont County for getting us a, sample one that they had put together. I'm using that right now. But one thing on the TA grants that we may need to think about, and I think I'll know more about this again after August the 4th, because it's a question we need to ask and nobody's talking about. If the planners don't get more money, or if the only money they get is just for them to continue with design work, the question's got to be, who is writing these applications? And we may need to take some of the TA grant money to help with hiring a grant writer. I'm not saying we have to, but that may be something we have to do in order to make this a success on our end. So be thinking about that. That's all I'm saying. But I'll maybe in 2 weeks I'll know more information on that. So that's all I had. Any questions today?
Well, John, as a singular entity, what you just said to me, my reaction to that is I thought the entire purpose of hiring planners was to make it easier on small entities like the Village of Ripley or whoever else is participating. So if we have to go out and involve a second group to write the application and then work with the planners who have come up with a design, it seems like it's almost redundant. And the money that we spend trying to get these people to write the grant for us could be given to the planners who could then write the grant that they've developed anyway.
I don't disagree. And when I can't speak for Claremont County and how they would go about it, but on the TA money, if we were going to do it, if we found out for us to be successful, we would need to do it for our TA grant that includes the other 7 counties. I would just ask those 7 counties, do you care if OVRDC secures a grant writer? Or you guys can get them yourself. I mean, I'm open, but I was thinking from my standpoint, like we get the person on, we go through a procurement and get them, and but we're gonna have to move on it if we're gonna do it. That's one of the things we're gonna have to move on it if we're gonna do it. So Um, I'm open ears on how to do it, but I also don't want to do it unless we know. Um, and maybe that's a conversation I need to have with John Kerry. I think some of this other stuff that I'm telling you that's possible is just due to conversations, and it's not just GOA. Some of this stuff, what we've told you in the past, has come from above Governor's Office of Appalachia, upper management of DOD, and they. So I think if we advise John of, hey, you got to approve these planners enough money to not only do design work, but to do some grant writing to help these communities out. Maybe it remedies itself. So
Well, I have
that
not,
message, I'll be glad to send that message. But I mean, I agree with you, Wayne. I don't think we should have to do it, but I'm just telling you there's a possibility.
well, the only other concern that I have is I have not heard anything about how Brown County is planning on administrating this TA money. And I've asked, but we're working on it is what I've been hearing for the past, 30 days or so, and there's no plan yet.
I don't have the answer for you, Wayne. You'd have to talk to Kelly or the commissioners. I guess
Okay.
that's who, Kennedy, I'm assuming that's who your subrecipient agreements with.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
I would reach out, yeah, to Kelly or Sarah B and go from there.
Well, I don't want to be the squeaky wheel, but at some point we need to figure out what the path is.
Yeah, and we've talked. Um, we were just talking yesterday about the August 4th thing, and I know I think was saying something about trying to get out of there at 1 o'clock, and it's a Friday. I don't want to be in Columbus till 5, but I also don't want to leave there with unfinished business. So I think we've got to roll up the sleeves that day.
Right. And I think it's important to note, John, that I think the reason for the meeting on the 4th is for the local development districts to kind of take a little more control of the program and to kind of tell the planners what direction we want to see. Because the planners have kind of want to go in a different direction that favor larger communities and larger projects. And I think the development districts want to have a say in how these applications come together so a lot of our small communities can get their projects funded.
Yeah, I agree with that, Ken.
Yeah.
And one of the things we were wanting to have this meeting, but there were so many. The last assignment of planners was in May, and some of those planners hadn't gotten in touch with communities yet. And we were going to do one of these meetings in just the OVRDC region, but then we were speaking with the other districts, and we realized that we think there's going to be a lot of success in applications that cross LDD boundaries. And I mean, if there's several applications, there could be a application that just is our region and Buckeye Hills only, or just our region or whatever. I don't know. But the thing is, I think we want to try to maximize um, everybody's chances of getting some of the money in my mind. And but as I've said, I've been honest about this, and nobody likes to hear this, but I'm a realist. I always tell people, but there are going to be some projects that won't get funded out of this. But what I always say to people is this isn't the only source of money. It may not be quite as lucrative. You might have to do a project in phases because the other funding that you would have needed may not, you go for other sources, they may not be willing to give you as much money. But anyhow, we'll work with you guys. Our plan is for the projects that go through this process, if we can, we want to help them find money through other sources if possible.
John, I have two questions for you. I'm going to start first with one that I think kind of dovetails into where your conversation is going here. So can you offer any clues as to what you guys are thinking about with those 4 categories right now, just broadly? Are you thinking about things like maybe theming or geography or the individual project components? What's your line of thinking there? Not necessarily am I asking what are the 4 components, but what's your line of thinking in coming up with those 4 components?
I didn't come up with them initially. Another LDD director did. And my comment was it's a good starting point. So keyword their starting point. I've been very, Ken probably has heard me say this more than once, that I do not want to lock ourselves into that 4 area. And I think that had to do with also, Jessica, when we were hearing that 4 to 10 applications, we were thinking, okay, we could do these projects and here's these 4 themes, and they were a little geographically set. Yes, is what I would say. They were geographically set. But that's what August 4th, part of the agenda on August 4th is to present those and also say what else are we missing? Are there some other things that we could tie projects in? But I can tell you this, and one of them isn't that strong because the title of it is one area under the House Bill 377. It just, so we want more dynamic. It would only cover, if you look at the true sense of what the title of it is, it would only fit under the infrastructure. We don't want to go themed like, here's a trail theme, here's a downtown theme, here's a workforce theme. That's out the door. We want to mix those all together.
Okay, that's really helpful, actually. So thank you for that clarification.
I would say that the themes are more geographic,
Okay.
or related to something.
Okay. Well, and logistically, I think if we, even though we want to cross county boundaries, obviously, and cross LDD boundaries if we can, there's just a logistical component you have to worry about when you're administering a large project. And it's a heck of a lot easier if you can drive to your partner's project site and have those face-to-face conversations or visit each other's, physical project sites and it not take 5 hours round trip or longer.
We're
Okay,
planning on putting, I'll go ahead, sorry.
no, that's fine. Make your joke because I was going to move on.
Oh, I was going to say, yeah, we're going to partner Claremont, Ashtabula, and Lawrence County. That was the plan.
Okay. Well, my second question, I'm really encouraged to hear that there's potential that more money may be going to the controlling board for approval for those planners. I did the math on that. And there's approximately 9.2 million left in the set aside for that out of the $30 million of TA money that was set aside out of House Bill 377 monies. So my question on that is, do we have any insight on how much may be up for the planners in September?
No, I just heard that this thing's a possibility as of yesterday. So I don't know. That's very, very early on information.
Okay, well, that's like almost a third of that $30 million set aside. So I was just wondering if you had heard anything about if there were any plans for that money.
Well, I would guess as of today or as of yesterday, before I heard that there might be more planning money allocated out, I figured it would go for just to fund development projects. But what I think, Jess, you and I've had this conversation, and Ken and I've had it. The state's got to realize they're going to pay for planning, we'll call it, because I would call planning all the way through design. That's just my generality. You're going to pay for planning on this side of the development application or on the other side of it. You got to finish designing your project to bid it and build it. So I never understood what happened. I do think that the whole decision part of that came from above GOA's head. Um, and so the decision was made to go and clip them off. And I think some of that had to do with they saw how many projects had been submitted and assigned planners. And I think some of the problem was I think the state felt like we don't want to spend all this money planning all these projects because we know they're not going to get funded. Now that's a guess on my part. I don't know their rationale. But if that's it, it makes sense from their standpoint. I get that. But um, by the same token, for those that are going to get funded under this program, if we don't keep designing and engineering them, they're never going to get done by October of 26. So they're in a catch-22 at the state, and I can't help that. But they shouldn't hamstring us because of that.
No, I understand that. And our biggest concern is one very specific thing. And that's Army Corps permits, frankly, because we know we could be waiting for up to 18 months for one of those. And when we have very limited time to actually construct a project, waiting 18 months to actually get started could kill the entire thing. Of course, we've got other project components and partners we're working with, but I think we're not unique in having the permitting question. And there may be other entities that we're going to require permits from that have similar wait times to actually get in and get started on construction. So that's why we're concerned.
Understandable.
This is Ralph. Kind of related to that. Did you ever get any responses to our questions and things that we did? Because that was one of the things, if the state doesn't pay for the design to get the permits and keep these things going, is that something that we can do with our TA dollars, or can actually go ahead? I mean, we see how critical it is to get some of those things moving and some of these projects. So I just don't want it to be stopped by somebody at Columbus. Basically, you're going to kill your large and impactful projects.
Right. No, actually, as Jessica was talking and mentioned that, I just glanced back to see if something had popped up in my email so I could answer her. And no, I've not gotten any response, Ralph. I think I will try to get hold of John Kerry today because I am concerned about the grant writing thing, and I think they're pulled in many directions, and they may not be thinking about that. And I'd rather put jog his brain to say, hey, if you get, it's like Jessica said, there's 9 million there. If it, of course, Ken, what'd you say? If I was king, I would do this. If I was king, I would probably allocate that other 9 million to the planners and just get her done. But I'm not king. So, anyhow, with that, I'll ask about those questions I submitted when I talk to John, see if we can't get an answer.
Hey, John, this is Troy Miller. I talked to our planners earlier this week, and they were talking about getting more money, but they were talking about getting more money for the design piece versus the actual writing of the grant. When this money gets allocated, if it gets allocated to the planners, will it be, hey, this is for you to help write the grant? We're working with an architectural firm, so they're probably more concerned with getting the design done, or at least that's kind of what I heard when I was talking to them. Is that on the radar as well, that if we allocate this funding to them, that they'll be helping us produce the document?
That's what I want to ask John today about, if I can get hold of him. Well, I'll call him and he'll call me back, whether it's today or next week. But I don't know the answer to that, but I'd like to kind of put the bug in their ear to think about not just money for them to finish design, but to help with the grant writing. Yes. Anything else?
Is there any more word on who will be replacing the procured planner that was dropped?
No one. They're just going with, well, now when I say that, no one is, they're not replacing them with a whole new planner to have 20 planners, but all the work, the group that was not renewed their contract, CT Consultants took the work that they were doing. So
Okay.
any community that had 143 engineers as their planner, CT Consultants is, excuse me, has taken on those projects.
Okay.
From our side, I know with our planner for the one project that we had that was accepted, pretty much didn't want to do anything. I know we kind of covered it because he said that they weren't going to be able to do design, but they weren't, seemed very disinterested in doing any planning for it whatsoever. So Sam's kind of had some fun conversations with that. So if it gets down to that, because when we get to the point and not have someone willing to do that piece of the planning, so you're thinking that possibly TA, or that's what you're hoping that you'll be able to find out from John, so I can just clarify that for Sam.
Yeah, I'm going to try to see what I want to see, John, is if we're going to be if that's going to be put upon us. You guys need to know that. I need to know that. Claremont County needs to know that, because we have the lead applicant on those grants, and we have to decide, does Claremont take an allocation from each county to hire one grant writer for everybody, or does each county pick their own? I mean, we got to figure, and I got to do the same thing with our TA grant. We got to figure that out, and we need to know that ASAP so we can start RFP in that.
I just want to make sure I clarified that right for Sam.
Yeah, you're right. And
If I can
go ahead.
If I can do one thing not related to ACGP, but kind of projects in general, Sam, we're trying to find a way to track, I guess, time, if people have a best practice for tracking time for projects. He said he had some stuff that was older, but he said if anybody had any newer ones and they'd be willing to share, he'd like to see some examples if anybody has any. So I just thought I'd put that out there since we had the group together.
Okay. Anything else, folks? Let's see. Yes, on the question, in the chat, we in fact, Gene, you'll have to answer. We got some questions answered, and we were going to put those on our website, weren't we? The answered questions. Have you got that posted yet?
I built the web page, but I did send those questions out in a direct email to our list of 130 plus people. So if you didn't get an email from me with the answers, let me know and I'll make sure you're on our list, and I will add those facts. I'm calling it FAQs. I think there were 3 questions, John, and
Yeah.
I'll add that to the web page. So on the website at the top, there's a red banner that says Appalachian Community Grant Fund update. Click here, and when you click on that, it takes you to a full page with all the archived meetings we've done and additional resources and the rubric, scoring rubric, just everything is right there on that page. So I haven't added the FAQs. I need to do that.
And once I get the answers, Jessica was asking, she had some questions. Once I get those, I'll make sure Gina has those to add up there as well.
Mhm.
And just a reminder, in case anybody does, what we decided to do was, if we have questions about eligibility, rather than everybody submitting them separately, is that if they would submit them to me, I'll submit them directly into the Appalachia at development email, and that way we'll get it back and then we'll put it out there for everyone. So we kind of centralize it. And so we appreciate it if you do that. Just send them to me and then I'll make sure they get put up to GOA. Well, folks, you know, they they always say the getting the grants the easy part. It's managing it once you get it, it's the difficult part. And from experience, I know that to be very, very true. So I can only imagine getting one of these grants. So I know everybody wants one, but be careful what you wish for. But no, I think I'm not trying to discourage anyone with that. I just know that this has been difficult. I know, and we'll get through it. We'll do our best to get through it. I want to see maximum investment in the OVRDC region. So we will work what we can do to make that happen. So appreciate y'all's time. And again, August 4th will be canceled. And Gina, if you can send out a new invite for maybe like 2 o'clock on the 7th, and we'll give you guys a update of what Ken and I find out from the 4th. Maybe we can give you a little better direction here in a couple of weeks. But keep working with your planners; they are on board, and hopefully we'll keep the thing moving in the right direction. So have a good weekend, and we'll talk to you all in here a couple weeks and a few days.
Right. Adios.